Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. It's December 2023, which means I'm getting ready for the new year by planning my monthly budget for 2024. This is the third time I'm doing this video on my channel. I did one back in 2021 and last year in 2022, and I'll link both of them in the description box below. So if you'd like to see how my budget has evolved over time, you can check out those earlier videos. But for today, I'll be sharing my planned monthly budget for 2024. After a full year of gathering data on my personal spending patterns and habits and seeing how it has changed over the year, there are some adjustments that I want to make. And also before the new year, which is a symbolic new beginning, it's good for me to reflect on my progress and take into account all the changes in my life circumstances, my goals and priorities, and adapt my budget to that new life. If you're curious about the specific goals I'm talking about, you can watch my last video on my money goals for 2024, which I published before this one, and that has more information about my mindset and philosophy towards money in general. A couple other things before I start. I have a link to the budgeting template that I'm using in this video linked in the description. It's a Payhip link, but it's free to download, and you can also donate however much you can afford. If you've downloaded it before and you've already been using it for the past few months, you don't have to download it again because I haven't made any major changes to it. But if you watch this video and you're interested in the spreadsheet that I use, you can find the link in the description box. I also have a Telegram channel where I post monthly updates on my budget and actual spending. It's posted on Substack, but I share the link to it on my Telegram channel. Telegram is also where I'll share updates on new videos and other things, so if you're interested, please follow me on there. On my Substack, I share my monthly budget at the beginning of every single month and highlight any adjustments that I make on a month-to-month basis. So if you would like a real-time update on how this budget is working out for me every month, you can check that out. If anything, it might be a good reminder for you to check on your spending at the end of every month when you get that notification from me. Alright, with all that out of the way, let's begin. I have all the different sections of this video timestamped in the description, so it's easier for you to skip around the next time you need to refer to this video. I always start with some background about myself first. My personal and financial background hasn't really changed much since the first time I made this video at the end of 2021. But just in case this is your first time to my channel, here is some context on where I am in life. I'm 27 years old this year and I'm Singaporean born and raised. I've been working full-time for 4 years since 2020. I'm single and unmarried with no plans to get married. I'm the sole income earner for my family and I'm fully supporting myself and my mother. I am a homeowner of a 2-room HDB resale flat that I bought at the end of 2020 and I live in this flat with my mother. I made a video about my current net worth back in July this year, so if you're interested in a detailed breakdown of my financial situation, you can check out that video. In January 2024, I'm finally changing jobs. I'll be moving into a new role with a different company and my new monthly salary is $4,500. To plot my trajectory over the years, in October 2022 last year when I was converted from contract to full-time in the same company, my salary was $4,000. Then this year in April 2023, it was increased to $4,120 and then again in July 2023 to $4,235. After changing companies, now it's $4,500. It's not the most dramatic of increases, but I think it's reasonable given that I've changed industries and my job scope is also very different. But honestly, $4,000 is the baseline for me. As long as I'm earning at least $4,000, I feel stable. And the very simple reason, or perhaps you might call it simple-minded, is that I'm able to pay my monthly mortgage fully with CPF instead of having to fork out cash every month. Previously, when I was earning in the $3,000 range, I had to top up about $100 to $160 in cash every month to pay my mortgage because there wasn't enough CPF contributions going in every month. So just having that weight off my shoulders made a huge difference to me and gave me more room in my budget to focus on other financial goals and improving my quality of life to where it is now. And with $4,000, for my lifestyle expectations, with the dependents that I have, at the life stage that I'm at now, it's good enough for me. And the fact that I have more than $4,000 to work with, that's a gift. Because on top of my full-time employment salary, I'm also earning about $500 every month from my side hustles, so that brings my total take-home salary after CPF to be $4,100. Anyway, the other main change to my compensation package besides the salary number is actually my medical benefits. At my previous company, because it was a large organization, I was able to get group hospitalization insurance, And this is important to me because, as I've mentioned many times on this channel, due to pre-existing conditions, I've had my applications for private hospitalization insurance rejected since 2020. However, at my new place of work, it's a much smaller company, so they don't offer group medical insurance, which means that I'll have a gap in my insurance coverage from next year onwards. So that's just something to keep in mind for myself and to keep an eye out for when I can try applying again and what I can do to mitigate any risks. For 2024, I'm continuing to use the same 5 categories as last year because I found that it works really well for me and I don't feel the need to change it. It's based off of sav.finance's 4-1-2-1-2 rule, which is where I first saw it last year. I used to follow the 50-30-20 rule that I read about on Seedly, and that's also a pretty good one. But they're both doing the same thing in that both frameworks are giving you a guideline of what percentage of your monthly income to allocate to specific categories. And also, even though we call it a rule, there's no right or wrong way to do it. It's really just a guideline or a starting point, and the percentages and categories can be adjusted according to your individual circumstances. With that in mind, I've adapted the 4-1-2-1-2 rule slightly from how I did it last year. In 2023, I was allocating 40% to necessities, 10% to insurance, 10% to wants, 20% to savings, and 20% to investments. For 2024, I'm adjusting the percentages to 35% necessities and 15% wants. So this is the general allocation rule that I'm using for my monthly budget. Alright, so on to the breakdown of my monthly budget. This might be a very familiar looking sheet to a lot of you. I've gotten a lot of questions in my previous budget video about how I track my day-to-day expenses and if I check what I actually spend against what I budgeted. What I'm doing here on this spreadsheet is planning the overview of my budget for the month. So once I've settled this part, I don't really look back at this sheet anymore for the rest of the month. For my day-to-day expenses, I use an expense tracker on my phone. I have a video on my channel about the one that I use, but you can use any app that you like using. So at the end of the month, I use the app to check on my total transactions in each category, and that's what I share in my monthly Substack updates. I compare those numbers to what I've budgeted, and I analyze myself and see if anything was unexpected or under budgeted for, and that's how I make adjustments for future monthly budgets. So yes, I do check to see if I followed through on my budget, and this is how I do it. Okay, on to the spreadsheet. We're starting at the top here, where I've input my 2 sources of income, and the amount we have to work with is $4,100. Then we go into my needs. Before anything else, money has to go here to make sure that we can keep the lights on, eat, have Wi-Fi, and commute to places. In past videos, I've always gone through line by line, but for this video, I'll just put it up on screen and you can pause to see each line item. I'll point out a couple things. My transport and food budget has increased most significantly from 2023's budget. And that's because with my new job, I'm no longer working from home most of the time, and so I have to commute and eat out more times than I've been doing over the last few years. It's still a rough estimate, so I'll be testing it out in January to see if $400 on food and $120 on transport is feasible. You can check in with me on my Substack for updates on that. If you have any questions about why I pay a specific amount for something else, please ask me in the comments below. Next is my insurance, which is the same as last year. I'm still only paying for whole life. I'll work on getting better coverage soon. I'll skip once for now and come back to it at the end. Let's look at my savings and investments first. You can see here that I have the numbers that I mentioned in my money goals video. I have my $400 for holiday fund and $300 for medium-term investments and family fund. Apart from my holiday fund, which I'm keeping in GXS, I'm keeping medium-term investments and family fund in Stashaway. For medium-term investments, I'm using their general investing portfolio because I'm planning to keep that money in there for about 5 to 7 years, and you can adjust the risk index of the portfolio depending on your time horizon. For family fund, I'm keeping it in Simple Plus, which is a cash management portfolio. It's got better projected returns than a regular bank account, and previously I was also using Simple Plus to keep my holiday fund. For my investments, I'm budgeting $900 in total. I'm contributing about $200 for my endowment plan, and this $700 will be invested on an ad hoc basis until I figure out a portfolio allocation that I'm happy with, and then I'll automate that. That's one of my goals for next year. And now we'll go back to the wants category. There are 2 main changes. Firstly, I've moved my medium-term sinking fund from the savings category to the wants category. I've also reduced it from $200 to $150. In 2023, I realized just how many times I had to dip into my medium-term sinking fund that it makes more sense to move it under wants instead. and that's also why I've adjusted my wants allocation percentage to 15%. And if you're wondering why I have two sinking funds, it's because the first one is more for the month's spending, while the medium term is just a general pool of funds for unexpected or big ticket spending in the future, like for gifts or during sale season. Then I also have $131 for language class and $100 for my yoga studio, two side hobbies that I find really beneficial for my life. So when I'm retrofitting my new goals into an existing budget and also with a new income, I'm always checking with the other categories and line items to see what needs to be adjusted. And typically wants is the category that will be the first to get edited. It's harder to cut needs and insurance because a lot of these items are recurring bills. And with that, I only have $6.88 that haven't been accounted for, which is fine. And this is how my allocation percentages look like right now. I've exceeded my needs target by just a little bit, but that's okay, and everything else is within range. And that is my planned budget for the year. Some final thoughts before we close off this video. Earlier this year, a friend had pointed out to me that we had been out of school for 4 years, and so we can't call ourselves fresh graduates anymore. Hearing that and realizing the truth of that statement sent me into a bit of an identity crisis. And then recently I was talking to another friend and she pointed out that we've already been working for 4 years, and so we're technically not even entry-level workers anymore. And that was identity crisis number 2, because it hadn't occurred to me to think about it that way. I've had 2 reminders this year of how far behind me my university days are. I'm deep into this adulting thing and no one else but me is responsible for my life and my decisions. And while that sounds scary, I think that after working for 4 years, I'm finally at a place where I feel stable, and for that I'm very grateful. And this sense of stability and security didn't happen overnight. It has taken almost half a decade. I was at a Fall Out Boy concert this month and Pete, the bassist, said something like this. I can't really remember the exact words, but he said, "The stuff that inspires you are like the gas in your car, but you still have to drive the car." And I thought that was so profound. I was just there for a concert. I wasn't expecting some deep wisdom about life. So here's your reminder. You can find inspiration from anywhere and anyone, but unless you take action on whatever it is you want to achieve, you won't move forward. If you've been thinking about setting a budget for yourself or confronting your money habits, but you just haven't found the courage, this is your sign. You have to take the first step. Sometimes when I feel bad about myself, or if I'm feeling antsy about how slow things are going, or if I start comparing myself to my peers, I go back and rewatch my older videos to remind myself of how far I've come. And I know I couldn't have done it in any less time than it did. Not 6 months, not a year. It took me 4 years. So don't feel discouraged if you feel like you're making slow progress. This is a long game that we're playing. Thank you again for watching. I really appreciate it. I wish you a happy new year and all the best for 2024.